Hello everyone, this is Judy from Coffee, Cookies, and Books, and I'd like to say hello to everyone returning and new. Today what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about my 5 best reads of 2024 and my 5 not so best reads of 2024. I don't like to say worst because I don't really think they're the worst, but maybe my biggest disappointments of 2024. So if you're interested in hearing about these 10 books, please be sure to stick around. Really great to see you again. I believe this video is going up just a couple of days before Christmas, so I hope everybody is having a wonderful holiday season. I'd really love it if you could like and subscribe, and that would greatly help me grow my channel. I'm going to be bringing you one video a week every Tuesday morning. It's going to go up, so hopefully I'll be able to keep to that schedule and be able to bring you something new every single week. I would really love it if you have any suggestions below. Comment and let me know the sorts of things that you do like to hear. Of course, I'm a huge follower of a lot of YouTubers, so I will be picking up ideas from them, bringing them in and putting my own spin on them, so to speak. I'm not one who follows all of the trends. I do like to follow some of them, simply because they're great books and I want to read them. And it's the same thing with some of the ones that are not the trendy ones, and I love them and I want to bring them to you. So it's going to be a little bit of both where I'm concerned. All right, so what we're going to do today is I just wanted to start with letting you know that these books are, it's my opinion of these books. So please take that as it is. Everybody has their opinions, good or bad. Now, typically, I do not put my DNFs in my tracking. I've never done that. I've just kind of gotten rid of them. So going forward into 2025, I will start to track my DNFs, and I will, write my opinions of those in my review, like give a mini review. I wouldn't say it's a review. I would say it's just my opinion on why I didn't continue to read them. I didn't do that. Now, there are 2 that are on this list that technically I DNF'd, and I will explain why I kept them on my list. I had reasons for keeping them on my list. So I'm going to talk to you about those. I'm including those kind of in my worst because initially they were my worst, obviously. But we'll see, what you think about that, because obviously my opinion has changed a little bit. Not yet, but it may. So we'll see. And you're going to see from this that I'm obviously a very, what I read varies. It's kind of all over the map. I do have my favorite genres, but I like to read a little bit of everything, from nonfiction all the way to classic fiction to science fiction, fantasy books, romantasy books, romance books. I do tend to prefer sort of suspense romance. That tends to be my preference, and I'm going to discuss that because of what one of the books here. So anyways, let's get on with it. I did want to say that one of the books I'm not going to talk about too much because it's going to be in my final review of what I read sort of tail end of November into December. So it's going to be on there, so I'm not going to talk an awful lot about it. And if any of the books that are in this chat are in previous reviews, I will link those reviews below for you. Okay, so I think that's it, and we can get started. So the first book that we're going to talk about is When the Moon Hatched. So technically I DNF'd this book, and I can't remember when I read it, several months ago. Might have been the end of the summer. I attempted to read it. Now, I did attempt to read it as an ebook. And I do think that's an important point, which I'm going to make. I was about, I would say, 50 pages in, and I just was, I thought, I mean, it made me feel stupid. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I'm reading this thing and I'm thinking, this isn't going anywhere. I don't like, it's convoluted, and it frustrated me. So I DNF'd it. I was basically ready to write it off. It was going to get deleted and everything. But what stopped me was there's so many wonderful reviews I was seeing about it online. Now, there were a lot of people who said they didn't like it, and I think that's completely fair. But I'm the type of person that I find, and this has happened more than once, that if I've read something as an ebook, as soon as I read it in print, I'm fine. I enjoy the book. So I decided to get a print copy of this. It is one hell of a long book. I can't even see this here. I should probably have my glasses on. But it's about a 700-page book, I think, all in all. Pretty thick, but, you know, nice and floppy. Should be fine to read. Much like reading one of the Crescent City books in paperback, which I like reading in paperback. So I'm going to give this one a try. Now, it's just going to go into my bin, and whenever I pick it out, I will give it a go as a paperback. The other thing I like is the ease of it as a paperback, where you can mark the front to follow the characters and the glossary that's at the front. So when I was looking at the paperback, and somebody, I can't remember who it was, but one of the reviewers might have been Jess from Honest Fiction. Not 100% sure. She is one of the people who though really loved this book. So she might have been the one that mentioned it. Now I know she does a lot of audio books. I don't do audio. But she did mention that, you know, the glossary was super important. And I think having it in print, it makes it much easier. You know, you can mark off with just a quick marker where your glossary is and everything, and scroll back to it when you need to. I think that that's important, and another reason why I want to give this book a second chance. Okay, so that's this one. Okay, so then we have my next book, which was also a DNF. It was by, it's Den of Vipers by K.A. Knight, and it is a dark MMC, a dark motorcycle club romance. Why Choose, which I like. I read some motorcycle romances, but I don't read a ton of them. They have to be really fairly well written for me to read. There's one author, Piper Davenport, which I like her MMCs, motorcycle romance books. So, you know, we'll see. Anyway, this one has 4 guys, 1 girl, and it is dark in the sense that she is a strong, independent young woman, and she is basically sold by her father, her dirtbag father, to these guys. Now, I'm trying to think how far into it, because it's been quite a while since I read this one, and I was probably 25% into it, and it was just too much. Again, it was an ebook. And I'm like, I can't read. I'm not reading any more of this. So I kind of gave up on it. So what I've done is, again, similar to When the Moon Hatched, is I have pre-ordered it. So I'm going to put it up here. It's actually a new cover. So I'm wondering if it's being redistributed by a publisher, because I believe it was independent previously. Which means it might have gone through a bit of an edit as well, but we will see what happens. This is supposed to come out, I think it's March it's coming, that I should get the print book. So once I have the print book, it'll go in my jar and I will try it again, like When the Moon Hatched. I do think that sometimes, again, these books just don't translate well to ebook for me. I mean, I'm talking about strictly me. Like, I'm fine with my romance books on there, but sometimes I find with some of these more complicated plots where there's a lot of people and where there's fantasy elements, or something like this was very dark and there's a lot of moving parts, I just find the print book works so much better for me. So we will give that one a try and we'll see how it goes. So now the next three that are on the list are books that I read, that I rated. They're 2 stars and up a little bit, but they're my 3 biggest disappointments of the years. Okay, so the first one is Once Upon a Broken Heart. Now, I managed to pick up the entire set for a very reasonable price, and I was really looking forward to reading it. And this was the first one. This is not a long book. It was actually a pretty fast and easy read, but I almost DNF'd this 50% in. I was like, what the hell am I reading? Honestly. You know, I didn't dislike the characters. I liked Jack. I liked Evangeline just fine, but I didn't like anybody else in the book. And I thought the premise of the story just felt a bit of a mess for me. Like, it didn't feel, and I read the print book, it just didn't feel like it really came together really well. Now, a lot of the people, again, that I've seen review this have said it gets better and it becomes clearer and the story develops a lot more in the second and third book. So I'm like, I'm going to give the second book a try. If I don't like the second book, then all 3 are going to go to the secondhand bookstore because I won't keep them. So anyway, you know, I mean, it's always worth a try. I'm one of these people that I always want to read something. I just always feel bad when I just can't read this one really great. I gave this one 2 stars. I don't, and that was being generous because, like I said, at 50%, I almost DNF'd it and got rid of the whole, almost got rid of the whole set. But we'll see where it goes from there. Okay? All right. Now, next one. So, next on the one list is Wild Love by Elsie Silver. Now, I didn't hate this book. I gave it 2.75 stars. So, it didn't meet my expectations, I'll let you say. Now, maybe it's my own fault for thinking, after hearing about Elsie Silver and how great a writer she is and so on and so forth, that my expectations were very high for this. Now, I will tell you, I think I've mentioned it, when I read romance, I tend to prefer suspense style romance. So romance that has a bit of a fast-paced plot where there are a lot of moving parts and potential peril for both the female and male protagonist. So I like it to be really meaty. This was not. This was kind of boring. Okay. I mean, it was cute. I liked Cora. I thought she was sweet. She actually probably carried the story. So did Wes, which is why I'm really looking forward to the second book, because I did really like his character. So there were definite positives to it, but overall I thought the 2 main characters, particularly Rosie, was real milk water. There wasn't like really a lot going on with her. It was just really, really boring. That's the best description I can give it. So I managed to read the whole thing. I am like super, super, super hopeful that the second one is not boring, because I'll be really disappointed if the second one is boring. All right, and then the last one on my biggest disappointments list is Red Rising. Why is it a disappointment? Well, I guess, again, my expectations were built up a little bit because it is sci-fi, which is, you know, next to suspense romance, is probably my second favorite genre. And so many people had so many wonderful things to say about the book, and I really wanted to love it. I didn't hate it. I did give it 3 stars, okay? So, you know, better than halfway there. But I really wanted to give it 5 stars. I like so badly wanted to give it 5 stars. And now, I liked the main character, Darrow. Darrow is a red, and the whole premise behind the story is that the Reds are the lowest caste in this society, this off-Earth society. And he resents being a red, and he becomes they give him a makeover to pretend he's a gold, which is the top level of the society. And it is that story. What really held me back was his age. I think that if Darrow had been maybe even, he was 16 in the story. Sorry, I should have mentioned that. And married and working like a grown man. His thought processes and the things that he did sometimes remind you of a 16-year-old, because you know that as a 16-year-old, your choices are definitely not the best all the time. And, you know, sometimes I got some of that off of it, but I just felt, it felt incongruent, I think it's the best way to put it. I think that if he'd been 18, 19, 20, which people have said the next books, he's older, so it's easier to follow him in those next books. So I am going to read them. I actually have the second book. I don't have the whole set, but I do actually have the second book. I am going to read it. So maybe that issue with it, I think that was my biggest issue with it. Yeah, because the actual story I found super interesting, and the things that happened to him were pretty rough. Things got a little bit boring, sort of, I would say, after the halfway point and a bit. There was a good maybe 25% of the book that I just kind of slogged through it. But the rest of the book was an interesting story. It was just suspending my belief of the fact that he was 16. And, you know, maybe that's because I'm old and I'm like, no 16-year-old, I know. And I know I mean, it's speculative fiction, so, you know, you're supposed to basically say, yeah, but, you know, don't think about the fact that he's 16 but you can't help but do that, right? That's just the way it is. Anyway, so that's the last one. So those are the 5 books that I would say would make my worst list. You know, I wouldn't say that they're my worst. They're definitely not, but they're definitely what I would call my biggest disappointments, and they are on the lower end of the scale of what I typically rate. When I looked at how I rated, because as of right now, I think I've read 79 books this year, which is quite a lot for me. I think I set my goal at 47, which is a very weird number. Don't know where I came up with that number. But anyways, so obviously I've read almost double that, which is, it's great. It hasn't been a chore to read them. It's just been a natural process. But I do tend to rate the majority of my books between like 4s and 5s. When I looked at how it scoped it out, very few of my books hit below the 4. So I do tend to be a bit of a higher rater. And that's mostly because even what people would consider to be bad books, I enjoy reading. Okay, so what we're going to talk about now is we're going to talk about the best, okay? And I'm not going to give super, again, detail, because I have reviewed these. Now, a couple of them I'll give a little bit more, and I'll explain why. But Okay, so let's get started with the best. So first one is Break No Bones by Kathy Reichs. Now, I've read quite a few of her books this year, but this one was a recent read, and it was, I did a full review on it in my last review. It wasn't a big review, but I did do this one. Now, so what Kathy Reichs books are is they follow a forensic anthropologist named Temperance Brennan, and each book is a different case. Okay, and in this particular book, she has a bunch of students, and they're on an island, and they're doing technically a historical dig because this real estate mogul has bought this land and he wants to build on it, so on and so forth. So anyways, they're digging and they're finding historical bones, but of course they find bones that shouldn't be there, which is the bones of an actual person. So the story goes on from there, and I loved this one. I thought it flowed really well. It just had such a great feel to it on how all the clues came out, and like she would find one thing, like, and sometimes in her books I find that there isn't sort of, you can lose a bit of the natural flow. There's been a few of her books that I've rated in like sort of the 3 range, but in this particular one, everything just like pieced together perfectly. I liked the fact that Andrew Ryan showed up, and he's sort of been her general love interest police officer that she works with when she's in Montreal, Canada, because she does work out of there certain parts of the year, and then other parts of the year she's in North Carolina. So in this particular book, she's down in the States, and it just, yeah, it's so great. It has a friend of hers who is really sick, and it's kind of a bit of an emotional thing. Getting a little teary-eyed thinking about it because it has to do with cancer. So that is a little bit tough to read because my dad's partner is going through that right now. So it makes it a little bit hard for me to talk about that sometimes. Anyway, I can't recommend this book enough. I mean, all of her books are fantastic. Like I said, some of them I rate a little bit lower, some of them a little higher. I can't remember which one this is in the order of her books. She has probably about 30 books out, somewhere in that range, and I think this might be 10 or 11. So I still have quite a few of her books to read. So, really looking forward to that. The next 2 I'm going to kind of talk about together because they belong together. So that would be well, maybe we'll do it this way. So the Fallen one from Brittany Sheehan and the Wrecked one. Now, they're both part of the Falcon Falls series. They are books, what did I write? Did I write it down here? 6 and 7, okay? Now, I did not review these because I read these before I started my channel. The Falcon Falls series follows a group of men who, I shouldn't say just men because there is a woman in there too, and they form a security company. And it just sort of flows from, each book is a separate man and a separate woman, so each one is a separate romance, but you do have to start at number 1, because if you don't start at number 1, you'll be completely lost, especially by the time you get to this one. This is 6, okay, and then this one is 7. Now, let's talk about this one first. So this is Carter's story, and Carter is one of the lead guys for, he heads up Falcon Falls Security along with Gray. Gray's story was the book before his, or 2 books before, I can't remember, but it was a couple of books before. But Carter's story is a longer story, and that is because I think it's the first 200 pages is in the past. And the female love interest, Diana, is mentioned in the beginning. There's a huge age gap between them, which typically, usually I don't like, but because I read the whole series, and because I developed very much a fondness of Carter, and that's why it very much you wanted to know his story. By the time I got to this point, you want to know what's going on with Carter. Why is he the way he is? Because he has a very certain personality and things that he does that make him a very hard person, and you want to know why he's that way. And he was married, his wife was murdered, and Diana is kind of in the background during that whole process, but he always has feelings for her, and it develops so well. The story is, oh my gosh, it's a tough story, but there are so many layers to it that oh yeah, I loved it. It was fantastic. I gave it 5. All of these books have been 5 stars for me, and this one was definitely a 5-star. And this story from this one follows and goes into this one, which is Oliver's story. He's the youngest member of the Falcon Falls security group, and it's him and Mia has also flowed through all of the book. She's best friends with Sydney, who is one of the members of Falcon Falls security. So it's all kind of tied together. And him and Mia, Oliver and Mia, have been dancing around each other throughout all these, I think from second book onwards. So it's been kind of crazy with him, and something happens that just Oliver has a really difficult time dealing with, and he basically deserts the group. And when you read through this, it's a very hard read, but it is a continuation with the antagonists of this book and how this book ends, and it goes into this book and how they have to solve that. Okay, and who's behind it? There are parts of this that are pretty brutal to read. I would say you really need to check your trigger warnings on this one, because things happen to Mia that are not great, and Oliver has to witness these, and it really breaks him as a man. So it's a tough read, and then it's her not letting him do it. So very emotional read, and it was an incredible finish to the series. I was so sad to see the series finish, you know, and but of course Brittany's going to write more great stuff, and like she always does. So, and oh, I will link, I did a feature author on her, and I do go over this series in that, so I will link that below because that video was great. So, okay. So then the next one that I wanted to talk about is Glow of the Everflame. So I've read both Spark of the Everflame and Glow of the Everflame this year. This one was a recent read. Now this is the one that's going to get reviewed in my final review for 2024. So I have not reviewed this one yet, so I'm not going to talk a lot about it because I don't want to give away too much, because I do want to put that in my review. But oh my gosh, I love this one. Now the first one, I think I gave the first one 3.75 stars, so almost 4 stars. There were just certain parts of it, like I felt like something would happen, then it would kind of die, then something would happen, and then it would kind of die. So I felt the pacing was off in that book a little bit, but I still liked the book, liked the characters. Diem is the main female character, and I don't like her name. It's like, I had a hard time with that. I've gotten used to it, obviously, now, in the second book. But the second book was just, like, yeah, wow. Loved it so much. It just, how it all flowed. And I don't want to give it away just yet, because I do want to talk about it in my review. When I do my reviews, I do tend to be a bit spoilery. So that's why it's like, I'm not going to give anything away right now. but I did really, really love this story, so can't wait to review it. All right. And the last and final one, I left my best for last. This was my best book of 2024. Hands down, 100%. If I could have given it 10 stars, it would have had 10 stars. That's what I consider to be my best. The best of the year would be the books that 5 stars just is like, it wants to break out and get free of 5 stars. And that would be this one. This is Leviathan Wakes by James S.A. Corey, which is a writing duo. And this is the first book in like a 9-book series. There's a lot of offshoot books that go with it, but the base is of the Expanse series is 9 books. And this is the first one. And I friggin' love this book so much. It's a science fiction space opera. And in this particular book, there is a detective, Miller, and he is trying to locate a missing girl. And then there is Captain Holden, who him and his ragtag crew have gone to hell and back out there in space, and somehow Holden and Miller end up converging and having to work together. So it's yeah, wow, it's like such an amazing story, and it has to do with so there's like these people have expanded out into space, obviously, and there are different sections of space, and there are people that aren't happy with where they're at, like Mars isn't happy and they say they're going to go to war. And then there are people that live on the asteroid belts, and they are, they grew up that way and they're kind of stuck in the middle. And then there's Earth. It's just a very, it is very complicated, but the way that it's written, like, you do not lose track of it. I just found it such a easy to follow science fiction story, and one of the best I've read in a very, very long time. I would put this right up there with the Dunes of the world in a very different manner. Dune is, of course, a very kind of different story in how it's written and that sort of thing, but this is just freaking fantastic. Oh my gosh, I loved it so much, and I can't recommend it enough. Now, I did review it, I think, in my last review. Pretty sure it was my last review. So again, this along with the Kathy Reichs book will be in that review, so you'll be able to, if you want, like I said, I'm going to link those below, along with a couple of other ones. So I guess that's it. I really don't have anything else to say. No, let me just make sure I didn't miss anything. No. Okay, so basically now we're coming to the end of the year. So the next video is going to be my TBR for January. It'll be the first time that I pick my TBR. Now, what I did was I had a jar and I had to change it because I had too many things in it. So I changed it to this. I love this thing. It's just really great. It just unfortunately makes a lot of noise because of this bangy thing, but I'm going to get my hands in there and we're going to dig out. But as you can see, there are a ton. I mean, there are a ton in here. So I'm going to have a lot of fun picking my TBR. Okay, so that will be the one thing. So I will explain when that video comes up how I'm going to pick everything, because I don't need to do that right now. And then the first, so that's going to go up on the 31st, which is New Year's Eve day. It is a Tuesday. So that will be the final review, final video of 2024. And then on January 7th, I will review my final reads, which will include Glow of the Everflame in there. And I'm going to, we'll see how, that one goes. I think altogether I have 4 or 5 print books, and I probably have half a dozen ebooks that I've read, because I read them kind of in tandem. So I do tend to read. So I probably have about a dozen, around about a dozen books to review. So it'll be a really great review. All right, I think that's it. I don't have anything else to say. Hopefully this is a nice short video. I say that all the time and it never is, because I talk too much. Yeah, I really do talk too much. But again, if you would please like and subscribe. Love to hear your thoughts on any of the books that I've given. Oh, and I am going to put actual links to Amazon to all of the books that are here if you are interested in picking up any of them. I would recommend that if you're thinking about potentially reading the Falcon Falls series, that you would start with the Hunted one, which is the first one. I'm just looking over there. Yeah, the Hunted one is the first one in the series. I would begin with that one and then go from there. Okay, so, and I will actually include the link to the first book down there as well, because I think that would be of benefit. All right, that's it. I'm out, and I hope everyone has an absolutely wonderful Christmas holidays, and I will see you New Year's Eve day.